The thoracic diaphragm is one of the most important muscles of the body, yet very few people know it. Let's discover it. The word diaphragm comes from Latin diaphragma, which means partition or separation. It's a muscular separation between the thorax and the abdomen. It allows stabilization for the vertebral column, has a sphincter role for the esophagus, and it also has a pump role because, first, it's the main respiratory muscle and therefore it pumps the air into the lungs. Then, it's the engine of the visceral organs and allows expulsion, defecation, urination, childbirth, etc. And finally, it enables venous return and allows the lymphatic system to work. The heart and the pleura, that contains the lungs, lie over the diaphragm. And under the diaphragm, we find the visceral organs and mainly the liver on the right, the stomach on the center, the spleen on the left, and backwards, the kidneys. Wow. The diaphragm is a dome with two cupolas, right and left. The right cupola is higher than the left because the liver, the largest internal organ, lies under it. And there's a theory suggesting that's also because of the heart lying over the left cupola. The right cupola is at the 4th intercostal space height, and the left cupola is at the 5th intercostal space height. The diaphragm is composed by three main parts: the peripheral or muscular part, the central part or central tendon, and the pillars or crura, which is Latin for legs. The peripheral part is where the diaphragm attaches to the bones. At the front, the fibers attach to the xiphoid process and along the costal margin. You know, the slam-dash-shaped reunion of the 7th to 10th ribs cartilage. Laterally, the muscle fibers insert into the last 6 ribs from K7 to K12. The posterior fibers insert via the crura on the lumbar vertebrae. The right leg is longer than the left and inserts into the anterior and right parts of L1, L2, L3 and sometimes even L4. The left crus, shorter, inserts on the anterior and left parts of L1 and L2. These pillars blend with the anterior longitudinal ligaments of the vertebral column. Lateral to this crura, we find other 2 accessory crura inserted on L2. All the muscle fibers from these peripheral attachments converge into a central tendon which forms the crest of the dome. This fibrous central layer has a shamrock shape with 3 folioles. The anterior foliole is small and transversal. The right foliole is the biggest of all, and the left foliole is smaller than the right one. Between the folioles, we find 2 semicircular fibrous bands, the caudal or inferior band between the right and left folioles, and the cranial or superior band between the anterior and right folioles. The diaphragm is pierced by openings, allowing communication between the upper and lower body. There are 2 kinds of openings: arcades or ligaments on the peripheral area, and holes on the central tendon area. The medial arch or medial arcuate ligament extends from the anterior and lateral parts of the second lumbar vertebra's body to the tip of the transverse process of the first lumbar vertebra. It gives passage to the psoas muscles. The middle arch or middle arcuate ligament extends from the tip of the transverse process of the first lumbar vertebra to the tip of the 12th rib. It gives passage to the quadratus lumborum muscle. And the lateral arch or lateral arcuate ligament extends from the tip of the 12th rib to the tip of the 11th rib. The left and right crura will crisscross at their superior parts, forming the median arch or median arcuate ligament. This arch will delimit the aortic hiatus at T12 height. It's a fibrous, non-contractile hole allowing the passage of the descending aorta. The crura will crisscross again around the esophageal hiatus. This contractile hole at T10 height gives passage to the esophagus and to the anterior and posterior vagal trunk that come from the 10th pair of cranial nerves. The inferior vena cava foramen is located on the right of the intersection of the cranial and caudal semicircular bands at T9 height, and it allows the passage of the inferior vena cava and of the right phrenic nerve. The left phrenic nerve will go through an opening ahead of the left foliole. The greater and lesser splanchnic nerves will pass through an opening between the crura and the muscle fibers. The sympathetic trunk will go through the crura and the accessory pillars, and the azygos vein either goes through the aortic hiatus or through the right crus. At the end of the video, I'll give you a tip to remember at what vertebral floor the openings are, so keep watching. The high oxygen consumption of the diaphragm means that it needs arteries. We find the left and right internal thoracic arteries that come from the left and right subclavian arteries, the musculophrenic arteries that come from the internal thoracic arteries, the intercostal arteries from 3 to 12 that come directly from the aorta, and the superior and inferior left and right phrenic arteries, along with the lumbar arteries that also come directly from the aorta. The veins follow the arteries, so we find the left and right internal thoracic veins that drain into the left and right brachiocephalic veins, the musculophrenic veins that drain into the left and right internal thoracic veins, the right intercostal veins from 3 to 12 drain directly into the azygos vein, which will itself drain into the superior vena cava. The left intercostal veins from 3 to 12 drain into the accessory hemiazygos vein and into the hemiazygos vein that in turn will drain into the azygos vein. And finally, the phrenic veins and lumbar veins will drain into the azygos vein. That's a lot of drain. The nerves that control the diaphragm are the phrenic nerve that comes from the cervical nerve C4 and sometimes even from C3 and C5, the intercostal nerves that come from T5 to T11, and the subcostal nerves that come from T12. The fact that the phrenic nerves come from the neck region allows to control the diaphragm even when there is a high spinal damage. The diaphragm is unique because it allows us to breathe whether we pay attention to it or not. When we're stressed, the diaphragm stops working and the problems begin. We feel suffocated, we start breathing with the neck accessory respiratory muscles, which leads to neck pain. Our visceral organs stop moving as they should, and it can lead to hiatal hernia, gastroesophageal reflux disease, etc. The lymphatic system starts working poorly and it can't have its immunity role, and the venous return decreases, causing hemorrhoids, varicose veins, and so on. So we really have to learn how to breathe. This is the topic of a future video. See you soon. Bye. Here are the tips to remember at what vertebral floor the openings are. The inferior vena cava goes through the diaphragm at T9. To remember it, I vena cava spells with 9 letters. The esophagus goes through the diaphragm at T10. To remember it, the word esophagus is spelled with 10 letters. And the descending aorta goes through the diaphragm at T12. To remember it, aortic hiatus is spelled with 12 letters.